everyone, I'm Teresa. I just want to say thank you to everyone who has come back and welcome to anyone new. As a reminder, please subscribe to my channel, and today I'm going to walk you through this furniture flip that I did. These are a couple of nightstands that I actually found on the side of the road that are for my sister-in-law. So thanks again for coming and checking it out, and let me know what you think of it. Alright, so we have two nightstands and we are going to make them over. I'm making them over for my sister-in-law. She needed nightstands that were a little more narrow. I did in fact find these on the side of the road and thought what a better thing to do than to make them over. I'm going to remove the hardware, sand it down, and probably fill in some areas with some wood filler. As you can see here, I'm going to zoom you in a little. There's a crack on the corner, and it's like that I think on both of them, so I'm going to fill that in with some wood filler, and I'm going to take off the hardware. The hardware on that one is broken, so I'm going to end up getting some new hardware. Alright, as I said, I'm just going to go in and fill in all of these little cracks. There were some areas that were really cracked open quite a lot, and mostly on the corners of both of the nightstands. There were some other areas that I noticed after I painted, so I would just recommend, if you are going to use the idea of filling in some stuff with the wood filler, do a really thorough look over everything, and then I'm going to go in and do the same on the other one. Like I said, there were a couple spots I could have gone over and done this too. This is supposed to be, it's going to look a little more rustic, a little more weathered, so it's not too much of a big deal. I'm going to remove the hardware on everything, and I am going to end up buying some new hardware for it since one of the handles is broken. And when they came off, they unscrewed pretty easily, but they did kind of stick quite a bit. I'm going to go in with my orbital sander. When I first started off doing it, I did a 40 grit, and what I'm going to recommend is not to sand too much. Like here on the top of it, I sanded too much. I should have just taken off the first layer of like grime essentially, and that's kind of what I did more with that little block of sand. That's, if I had to do it over again, that's what I would have done. I would not have taken off so much of the paint. This way, when you're just sanding off kind of that layer of nastiness, you're kind of getting it done exactly what you need to. I ended up going in after and with a 320 grit sandpaper. Like I said, I would definitely not recommend doing this. It was much better off if I hadn't done this part. I think it would have been a better result. It all turned out okay, but I think I could end up seeing through a lot of the differences and spots. So once I'm done sanding, I am going to go in and try to clean it up quite a bit since I'm going to be painting it. I went in first with a dry cloth and then went in with a wet sponge, and man, does this thing get dirty. I don't know if it was just mostly the sandpaper or just this nightstand, well, either of them really in general. I think it was kind of a combination of both. So just that's just some soapy water, and what I end up doing is I wipe it down pretty good with the soapy water. I end up getting new water that's just water without the soap to try to get rid of any potential residue. As far as the soap, I'm using just kind of like that Blue Dawn. So once I've let it dry for a little while, I'm going to go in and start adding in my coats of spray paint. This is the Rust-Oleum spray paint. Remember it's called Perfect Gray. I will have it down in the description box below. This does have a primer built in, and I've learned many things through the course of this project, and one of them would probably be not to spray paint. This was a really windy day to top it off, so my spray paint when I was doing it was just flying all over the place. And I ended up using, I think, almost 4 cans of spray paint for these two nightstands. And I think I would have been happier with the result if I had just gone in with some chalk paint or furniture paint. I thought I was saving some money by doing it with spray paint, but I think I probably could have done it with just a regular paint. And here I'm going to show you, this is kind of the first coat. I don't honestly remember how many coats I ended up doing. I think I did at least 4 or 5. This is the second coat, and see how you can kind of see through it and see the lighter areas? That's where I sanded too much. And this is the third coat. When the furniture is flipped upside down like this, I was really focusing in on that bottom part. Alright, as you can see here, obviously the top part of it is much darker in the middle area there than the rest of it. So like I said before, I would not have gone back in and done the sanding as heavy as I did, just because as you can see here, I had to go in with a darker color. This is a chalk paint from Art Minds called Smoked Pearl. I'll leave that in the description box. I didn't end up recording it, and I did it because there was such a distinct difference between the color on the dark, that area in the middle, and the outside. So I decided that was probably going to be best. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go in with the Folk Art Antique Wax. I start off with kind of like a narrow long brush, thinking that would be the best choice to put that down, and I just quickly decide that that's not going to really work. So I go in with one of these little chippy brushes from the Dollar Tree and go along where that darker gray meets the lighter gray, and just kind of give it a little bit of a brushing through the lighter gray part too. And as I'm doing that, I lay it down, and when I want it a little thinner, I go ahead and just wipe it off with that cloth. And what's nice is when you're doing it with this this antique wax, if you get too heavy-handed somewhere, you can just get a damp cloth and wipe it down a little bit to kind of get rid of it. I would imagine if I'd gotten something really wet or had done a lot of pressure, I probably could have gotten rid of the majority of it. So it's really nice in that you can do that. I'm just going through pretty much any of the detailing areas to give it some of that weathered antique look to it. That's what my sister-in-law said she was pretty good with. And one thing that's really nice is, since I spray painted it, if I have any areas that didn't become as opaque as they should have been, I can easily go in with this antique wax and give it kind of a little bit of a coverage there to make it look like it was on purpose. So what I'm doing this right now is that kind of like back and forth. It's going more of like a horizontal brush stroke. I really liked the way it came out for the kind of more like this column look to it right there on the sides. And I'm going to do the side here. You've got, I did a lot of it, made sure I did the underneath part. You can't obviously see it from, you know, from an angle when you're looking down at it, but I figured I'd add in that little bit of detail. These little inlays I liked putting in probably a little more than I did on the front, just because it gave it kind of a little bit of character. And again, I'm doing it on the bottom part too, where they have those curves, so it gives it kind of a little bit more depth to it than this, you know, light gray color gives it. And I went a little heavy-handed there, so I did rub down a little bit more. The faster you rub it off from when you put it down, the better off you're going to be. And I noticed I had a little bit of texture on part of it too, and it grabbed onto that texture a lot more. So just be warned about that when you're doing your sanding. And I've pretty much finished with my end tables at this point, and I'm just going to go in and do the drawer. And I'm just going to do the outside part first. Obviously this part can be a little darker because you're not going to see it too much. It's going to be pressed up against the nightstand. So I'm trying to focus in a little more on the corners as well. And I'm going to do the raised part next, and I went a little heavy-handed, and if you notice you do that, just go back real quick and brush it in or smudge it out, however you want to call it. And it's this stuff is actually pretty forgiving. I was really happy that I ended up using it. So now that I'm done with all of my antiquing, I'm going to go in and wipe it down with just a paper towel. This nightstand has been outside for almost a week at this point, so I wipe it down pretty good. I think I also used one of those little like air in a can things to try to brush off any debris that might have gotten on it from being outside. This is like a screened in porch area, so it's not too bad. and going in with this polyurethane just to seal it and kind of keep it from chipping away. And if it chips away a little, it's not too big of a deal because it is like a brownish color or a natural wood color, depending on where it got sanded. Once I'm done with that and it's had a chance to dry, I'm going to go in with the handles, and these little handles came from Amazon. It is a 4-inch span between the handles, so I found that on Amazon. I was not able to find it actually in a hardware store. I think I only found one of them at the Hobby Lobby, so I was ended up going through Amazon and was pretty happy with them. It actually came with 2 different size screws, and this is the smaller of the 2, just to be warned. I probably battled with it a little bit longer than needed with the longer ones first. And here is the finished look from them. I am actually really happy with the way they turned out. My sister-in-law has already seen them and she's really happy with them, which is really what matters because they're going to be in her house. And I'm just really excited that I was able to make them over. This is the first time I've ever done anything like this, and I was able to do it for under $35, and I think that was pretty cool. So let me know if you have any questions in the comments. Let me know if you have any advice if I ever decide to make over any furniture again. And please don't forget to subscribe, and I hope to see you guys next time. Thanks. Bye.